My name is Victoria Lane, and I'm 34 years old. For as long as I can remember, my parents always had the same line ready for me. They couldn't afford to celebrate my birthdays. Meanwhile, when it came to my brother Brandon, it was as if money magically appeared, no questions asked. For his 18th birthday, they spared no expense. A lavish ballroom in Louisville, a live band playing his favorite songs, a custom cake bigger than any I'd ever seen, and decorations that must have cost more than my first car. Every detail screamed celebration, attention, and admiration. My birthday, on the other hand, was almost laughable in comparison. A single cupcake from the drugstore, a $10 gift card, and Mom's usual line, "Money's tight, honey." I learned to nod, smile politely, and swallow the sting of being overlooked. Those years of invisibility, of being passed over while every cent, every resource, and every ounce of attention went to Brandon, became my fuel. While he had tutors, vacations, and every opportunity handed to him, I was left to figure things out alone, through late-night studying, through endless coding sessions in my dorm room, through the doubt that seeped into me with every comparison. Piece by piece, I built my own future. I poured myself into school, into technology, into creating something I could call mine. I launched a tech company from scratch, built it up from nothing, and years later purchased a sprawling beachfront mansion in Destin, Florida. The very house my parents once said I'd never have was now mine, paid for with nothing but my effort, grit, and determination. That day, I posted a single line on Facebook. "Thanks, family, for the motivation." The reactions were immediate and loud. Calls, messages, texts demanding explanations, all dripping with jealousy and confusion. But I owed them nothing. My life, my achievements, my future, none of it required their validation. Before I dive into the rest of my story, tell me, what time is it where you are, and which city are you watching from? I want to know how far this story has traveled. In our family, favoritism wasn't subtle. It was a constant, glaring presence. Brandon was always first, always the center of attention, the one whose milestones were celebrated with pomp and grandeur. I was always the afterthought, the one whose successes were either ignored or quietly acknowledged with a nod. For his 16th birthday, my parents booked him a private room at a high-end Louisville restaurant, complete with steak dinners, a DJ playing his favorite songs, and servers attending to every whim. Dad handed him the keys to a brand new red Mustang, whose hood adorned with a massive bow, while neighbors clapped and cheered as if he were royalty. And me? My 16th birthday was a quiet affair at home. A small homemade cake, a few friends gathered in the living room, and a pile of hand-me-down clothes from cousins served as my gifts. When I asked Mom why Brandon got a car and I got old sweaters, she sighed, "Money's tight, honey." I understood. I didn't fight it. I simply absorbed it, feeling the sting of being second class in my own family. It wasn't just birthdays that revealed the disparity. Brandon got tutors whenever his grades slipped, each improvement praised loudly at every family dinner. I had to teach myself algebra, spending nights in the library, burning the midnight oil with nothing but textbooks and determination. When I joined the debate team to prove I could shine, Mom barely acknowledged my first victory, too busy planning Brandon's next hockey tournament. He received new gear each season. I wore sneakers with holes until I saved enough from babysitting to replace them. At 14, I started babysitting, tucking every earned dollar into a tin hidden under my bed, determined to carve my own path rather than beg for scraps. The favoritism wasn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it cut in small, almost invisible ways. Once I caught Mom framing one of Brandon's mediocre report cards for her book club, showing it off like it was a triumph. My straight A transcript? A brief, nice job before she returned to conversation about Brandon. At a family picnic, Dad grilled Brandon for over an hour about his college plans, while I sat nearby, ignored, sketching in a notebook I had bought myself. Those moments, seemingly trivial, were the ones that chipped away at my sense of worth. I stopped expecting recognition at home. Instead, I funneled all my energy into things I could control: debate, academics, and later my career. My teammate Sarah, the only one who knew the quiet battles I fought, became my cheerleader. After a regional debate win, she slapped my back and handed me a cheap keychain as a trophy. "You're unstoppable," she said, and that praise fueled me far more than the absence of any acknowledgement from my parents ever could. By my junior year of high school, I had decided I wouldn't wait for fairness. I picked up extra babysitting shifts, saving every dollar for a future that belonged to me. At one family dinner, Brandon bragged about a new scholarship, and Dad toasted him with wine. I mentioned my own debate team qualification, and Mom nodded politely before immediately asking Brandon about his coach. I excused myself, added another $10 to my tin, and silently promised myself that one day I would create a life where their approval no longer mattered. That promise became my anchor, guiding me forward through college and beyond, toward a future they could never touch. College gave me a chance to start anew. I left Louisville behind and enrolled at the University of Kentucky in Lexington with a full scholarship I had earned through grit and determination. While tuition was covered, everything else wasn't. I took a part-time job at a local bakery, kneading dough at dawn, the flour coating my hair and forearms burning from the work, but every shift was mine. I never asked Mom or Dad for help. I knew they'd funnel any spare cash toward Brandon anyway. I shared a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, survived on instant noodles most nights, and studied until my eyes ached. Every late-night shift, every paper I aced, felt like a step toward independence, a declaration that I didn't need their recognition to validate me. Keeping in touch with home became an exercise in patience. Weekend calls with Mom were dominated by updates about Brandon, his new job, his latest apartment, his achievements, while my accomplishments barely drew a comment. Once I mentioned a coding exam I had aced. "That's nice," Mom said, then immediately pivoted to Brandon's promotion. Dad's texts were no better. Once a month, brief, impersonal reminders to keep your head down. Slowly, I stopped expecting more. My focus shifted entirely to my studies, building apps for fun and dreaming of creating something bigger on my own. Dr. Hayes, one of my professors, noticed my talent and encouraged me to enter a campus hackathon. I took second place, clutching a certificate that felt heavier than any gift I had ever received from home. As graduation approached, I invited Mom and Dad to the ceremony. I had spent 4 years balancing work shifts and finals to graduate with honors. The night before, Mom texted, "We're tied up with Brandon's event, you understand, right?" I stared at the screen, her words sinking like stones into my chest. Brandon's event was a massive backyard barbecue at his Louisville home, complete with a tent, caterer, and bartender. Meanwhile, I walked across the stage alone, my name echoing in a half-empty auditorium. My roommates cheered, waving a handmade sign. Their support meant everything, but the absence of my family burned deep. I called Mom the next day, asking why Brandon's party had taken precedence over my graduation. Her reply was clipped. His event was important for his career. "Honey, we'll celebrate you later." Later never came. That was the moment clarity hit me. I wasn't just second to Brandon. I was invisible, only present when it suited them. From that day on, I stopped calling home and funneled every ounce of energy into my coding projects. I began sketching ideas for a new app, a platform for creators to share short videos, something bold, something mine. My roommates became my sounding board, their encouragement louder than any silence from home. The rejection, the favoritism, the constant overshadowing, it fueled me. I took extra shifts at the bakery, saved every tip, and stayed late in the computer lab teaching myself new coding languages. Dr. Hayes connected me with a local tech meetup where I pitched my concept to a small audience. A few clapped, one offered feedback. Not much, but enough. I realized I didn't need Mom or Dad's approval to succeed. I would build my path, one line of code at a time, and they would see my worth on my terms, not theirs. After college, I threw myself into the tech scene. Lexington wasn't Silicon Valley, but it had enough startups to give me a real shot. I landed a job at a small tech firm debugging code for a clunky app nobody used. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but it was a start. I rented a tiny studio apartment furnished with thrift store finds and spent my nights sketching ideas for something bigger. I wanted to build an app, a platform for creators to share short, snappy videos, like TikTok, but with a focus on local artists and niche communities. I called it VibeStream, a name I scribbled on a napkin during a late-night coffee run. It was my ticket to proving I was more than my family's afterthought. I poured every spare hour into VibeStream, coding until my fingers cramped. My coworkers noticed. One of them, Brian Kim, a sharp developer with a knack for spotting potential, caught me tweaking the app during a lunch break. "That's slick," he said, peering at my laptop. "You should pitch this somewhere big." I brushed it off, but Brian wasn't the type to let it go. He'd been at the firm longer, knew the ropes, and had a quiet confidence that made you listen. A week later, he emailed me about a major tech conference in Louisville, the kind where startups got noticed. "You're presenting VibeStream," he wrote. "I signed you up." I panicked. Public speaking wasn't my thing, but Brian's faith in me was hard to ignore. Prepping for the conference consumed me. I refined the app's interface, added features like custom filters, and practiced my pitch until I could recite it in my sleep. Brian helped running mock Q&A sessions after work. He'd throw curveball questions like, "What's your revenue model?" or "Why not just copy TikTok?" I'd fire back answers, sharpening my vision. My other coworkers, a tight-knit crew of coders and designers, chipped in too. Sarah, a UX designer, tweaked Vibe's logo. Mark, a back-end guy, suggested a smoother upload system. They weren't just colleagues. They became my chosen family, filling a void my real family left behind. Their belief in me drowned out the echo of Mom's dismissive "that's nice" from years ago. The conference day arrived and I was a wreck. My palms sweated as I stood backstage clutching a USB drive with my demo. Brian was in the front row giving me a thumbs up. I stepped onto the stage, my voice shaky at first, but as I talked about VibeStream, how it could amplify local voices, connect creators in ways bigger platforms ignored, the words flowed. The crowd of investors and techies leaned in, some jotting notes. When I finished, a few clapped, and one guy in a suit asked for my card. I didn't have one, so I scribbled my email on a scrap of paper. Brian grinned as I left the stage. "You killed it," he said, handing me a coffee. "This is just the start." Katie Sullivan showed up at the conference too. We'd been friends since high school debate, though we drifted apart. She'd seen my post about the event on social media and came to cheer me on, waving from the back row like a proud classmate. "Didn't know you were such a tech star," she teased afterwards, snapping a selfie with me. Her presence was a nice surprise, but it was Brian and my coworkers who kept me grounded. They celebrated my pitch over cheap beers at a dive bar, toasting to VibeStream's future. Sarah raised her glass to proving them wrong. I clinked my bottle against hers, thinking of the family who'd never bet on me. VibeStream started gaining traction. A local artist used it to share music videos, and her followers spread the word. I quit my day job to focus on it full-time, scraping by on savings and freelance gigs. Brian joined me, offering to code the back end for equity. We worked out of my apartment, laptops balanced on a wobbly table, fueled by takeout and ambition. Every small win, a new user, a positive review, felt like a middle finger to the years I've been ignored. My family didn't know about VibeStream, and I didn't tell them. Their calls had stopped after college, and I was fine with that. I was building something real, surrounded by people who saw my worth. That was enough. Then came Brandon's wedding, the event that revealed my place in the family most clearly. He was marrying Erica Dawson, a Polish lawyer from a well-connected family, and my parents spared no expense. The ceremony took place at a 5-star hotel downtown, its ballroom transformed into a spectacle of crystal chandeliers and white roses. I heard from a mutual friend that the menu featured caviar appetizers, lobster tail entrees, and a dessert bar with a chocolate fountain. Guests included local bigwigs, politicians, business owners, even a minor celebrity chef. Mom and Dad were in their element, mingling with the elite, toasting to Brandon's future. I wasn't there. They didn't invite me. Weeks before the wedding, I'd heard whispers about it through old high school friends. I waited for an invitation, a call, even a text. Something to show I was still part of the family. Nothing came. 2 days before the event, Mom sent a message. "Wed this weekend."
You can stop by if you want, but it's a formal affair. The words hit like a slap, cold, half-hearted, and afterthought at best. I called her, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "Why wasn't I invited from the start?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "It's a high-profile crowd, honey. We didn't think you'd fit in." Dad chimed in on speaker. "It's Brandon's day. Let's not make it complicated." I hung up, their words echoing years of being sidelined. I sat in my Lexington apartment, staring at my phone, the invitation text still open. VibeStream was picking up users, and I just landed a small investor. But none of that dulled the sting. I wasn't just uninvited, I was unwanted. I thought about showing up anyway, crashing their perfect party in my thrift store jeans. But I didn't. Instead, I called Katie, my old high school friend who'd shown up at my conference last year. She was in Louisville for work and met me at a diner that night. Over greasy fries, I spilled everything. The wedding, the text, Mom's excuse. Katie listened, her eyes soft but fierce. "They don't deserve you," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're building something incredible. Don't let them dim that." Her words weren't flashy, but they were exactly what I needed. She didn't try to fix it or sugarcoat it, just sat with me, reminding me I was enough. Katie's support kept me grounded. We stayed at the diner until closing, talking about my app, her new job, anything but the wedding. She made me laugh, mimicking Mom's prim tone from old debate team days. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as Brandon's shadow, but as me. When I got home, I deleted Mom's text and blocked her number for a while. I didn't need their half-hearted gestures anymore. The wedding photos flooded social media the next day. Brandon in a tailored tux, Erica in a designer gown, Mom and Dad beaming like they'd won the lottery. I scrolled past, my jaw tight, and opened my laptop. VibeStream's user count had ticked up again. That was my focus now. The exclusion clarified everything. My family didn't just prioritize Brandon. They acted like I didn't exist unless it was convenient. I stopped checking for their calls, stopped hoping for apologies. Instead, I doubled down on my work. I hired a small team, rented a tiny office in Lexington, and spent nights tweaking VibeStream's algorithm to boost user engagement. Every new download, every creator who joined was a step toward proving I didn't need their approval.
Katie texted me a week later, checking in. You good? I replied with a thumbs up and a screenshot of Vibe's latest stats. Her response, a string of fire emojis, made me smile. I was building a life that mattered, and I wasn't doing it for them. Years of grinding led me to Destin, Florida. VibeStream had taken off, millions of users, a steady revenue stream, and a small but fierce team that felt like family. I'd outgrown my cramped Lexington office and was ready for a new chapter. A client, Helen Parker, a sharp real estate investor who'd been an early backer of my app, tipped me off about a beachfront villa in Destin. She'd seen my work ethic and vision up close during our meetings, and when she decided to sell her vacation home, she offered it to me at a price I couldn't refuse. You've earned this, Helen said, handing me the keys during a quick coffee meetup in Miami. The villa was mine, a symbol of everything I'd built without a single nod from my family. I couldn't resist sharing the moment. I posted a photo of the villa's sleek, modern facade on Facebook, the Gulf of Mexico glinting in the background. My caption was short but pointed. Thanks, family, for the motivation. Proving them wrong feels better than any party. I didn't expect much reaction, just a few likes from friends and colleagues. But within hours, my inbox lit up. Mom commented first. So proud of you, honey. We should visit soon. Dad followed. Wow, what a place. Let's celebrate together. Brandon chimed in with a winking emoji. Nice, sis. Save a room for me. Even my cousins Diane Lane and Corey Lane jumped in. Diane with, this is amazing, family reunion. And Corey with, looks like a party house. When's the invite? I stared at my phone, my stomach twisting.
They hadn't called in years, hadn't cared about my work, but now they were all over my post, sharing it in their family group chat like it was their trophy. I didn't reply. Their comments weren't about me. They were about what my success could do for them. A friend from Lexington sent me a screenshot of the group chat where Mom had written, "Our Victoria is doing so well. That house is perfect for family vacations." Dad had added, "Told you she'd make it big." I clenched my jaw. They were bragging to their friends, acting like they'd been there all along. The same people who couldn't be bothered to show up for my graduation, who left me out of Brandon's wedding, were now itching to bask in my glow. I scrolled through their comments again, each one dripping with fake pride, and set my phone down. I wasn't going to play their game. Instead, I focused on settling into the villa. It was my first real home, not a hand-me-down or a rental. I spent days unpacking, setting up a home office with a view of the waves, and planning Vivarium's next big update. Helen called to check in, her voice warm. "You look right at home," she said when I sent her a photo of my desk setup. Her words meant more than my family's hollow praise. My team was thrilled, too. Brian texted a string of party emojis, and Sarah insisted on flying down to help decorate. Their excitement was real, not a grab for clout. As I stood in my new living room, I realized I'd built more than a business. I'd built a life surrounded by people who valued me for me. My family's sudden interest couldn't touch that. The call started the day after my post. My phone buzzed with Mom's name first, her voice syrupy sweet. "Honey, that villa is stunning," she said. "We'd love to come see it, maybe have a family weekend to reconnect." I gripped the phone, my jaw tight. Reconnect. They hadn't reached out since Brandon's wedding, when they told me I wouldn't fit in with their high-class crowd. Before I could respond, Dad called, his tone hearty. "Let's throw a big party at your place," he said. "Show off what you've done." Brandon was next, casual as ever. "Sis, that house is unreal. Mind if Erica and I swing by?" Every call felt like a grab for my success, not a step toward fixing anything. I didn't answer right away. Their words churned in my head, each one a reminder of years spent sidelined. I called Mom back first, ready to lay it all bare. "You want to reconnect now?" I asked, my voice steady. "Where were you when I graduated college? You skipped it for Brandon's barbecue. You didn't even invite me to his wedding because I wasn't suitable. And don't get me started on the hand-me-down clothes while Brandon got a Mustang." There was a long pause. "We did our best," she said finally, her voice tight. "You're being unfair." "Unfair?" I laughed, sharp and cold. "You bragged about my villa to your friends, but never once asked about my work. I don't need your approval anymore." Dad was worse. When I called him, he cut me off before I could finish. "We're family, Victoria. Why are you holding grudges? Let us visit, we'll make it right." I didn't let him steer the conversation. "You made it clear I was second to Brandon," I said. "You threw him a huge birthday bash at 16, gave me a box mix cake. You funded his tutors, left me to figure out school alone.
I built everything myself. You don't get to claim that now, he sputtered. You're twisting things. But I hung up, my hands shaking. I wasn't twisting anything. Those were the facts. Brandon's call came last. He tried charm, chuckling like we were buddies. Come on, sis. Let's put this behind us. We can have a blast at your place. I didn't hold back. You got everything handed to you, I said. The car, the parties, the wedding I wasn't invited to. I'm done being your afterthought. My home is for people who showed up for me, like Katie and Brian. He got defensive, his voice sharp. You're acting like we're strangers. We're your family. I ended the call without another word. Diane and Corey got the same treatment. Short texts saying my villa wasn't open for their vacations. Diane replied, "Don't be so cold." And Corey sent a passive-aggressive, "Success changed you." I deleted their messages.
Their reactions didn't surprise me. Mom called again, her tone pleading. We just want to be part of your life. I told her the truth. You had years to do that. I share my life with people who cared before I had a villa. Dad sent a long text about family unity, but I didn't respond. Brandon posted a vague status about ungrateful people, clearly aimed at me. I let it slide. I'd spent too long chasing their validation, and now I was free. My team, Brian, Sarah, and the others were my real support, celebrating every milestone without strings attached. Katie texted me that week, checking in. Heard about the family drama? You okay? I sent back a smiley face and a photo of my latest vibe stream stats. That was my answer. I was building my future, and they weren't part of it. By the next summer, my life was completely my own. I'd cut off all contact with my family. No calls, no texts, no guilt. My villa in Destin was my sanctuary, filled with the laughter of people who'd been there through every step. I threw a party to celebrate VibeStream hitting 10 million users, a milestone that felt like a middle finger to everyone who doubted me. Brian was there, cracking jokes about our early days coding on a wobbly table. Sarah brought her famous brownies, and the rest of my team mingled with local creators who'd grown their brands on my app. Katie showed up too, sipping a drink and swapping stories about our high school debate days. She wasn't there to fix me. She was just a friend sharing the moment, like everyone else. Word got around about my family's struggles. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Brandon was in a rough spot. He'd leaned hard on Erica's income as a lawyer, but she'd lost a major client, tanking her firm's revenue. Their marriage was fraying. Arguments over money, missed bills, and Brandon's habit of overspending. They'd sold their fancy Louisville condo to cover debts, a far cry from the glitzy wedding they had flaunted years ago. Mom and Dad weren't doing much better. They still lived in their old house in Louisville, but friends said they seemed lonely, rattling around in a home too big for two. They tried reaching out to me once more after our last calls, leaving voicemails about starting fresh, but I didn't respond. Their regret came too late, and it didn't change who they'd always been. I didn't gloat. Their struggles weren't my victory. My life was. That party in Destin, surrounded by my chosen family, proved I'd built something real. I'd clawed my way up from being the overlooked kid, ignored at birthdays, and left out of weddings. Every milestone, graduating college, launching Vibes, buying my villa, was mine alone. I learned that self-reliance isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving without needing anyone's approval. Setting boundaries wasn't easy, but it protected my peace. My real family wasn't the one I was born into. It was the people like Katie, Brian, and my team, who showed up without expecting anything in return. Looking back, I tell anyone stuck in a family that picks favorites, you don't have to stay in their shadow. Build your own path. Surround yourself with people who see your worth, and don't be afraid to walk away from those who don't. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Thanks for listening to my story. Have you ever dealt with favoritism in your family? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like mine.